to just say that particular match was a dud.
I need it for 2 different sheets.
Oh.
So just leave it the way it is.
Okay.
So I'll read off of that before I transition.
Okay. I just thought I had that on all of them, but somebody took some of them, and I said somebody took some of them, and I have to reprint them, so I might have missed adding it to all of them.
Can I make it a challenge?
You need to talk to Karl, because he's going to be the one to ask somebody. And can you ask He just stated. Yes.
Are you doing the prayer?
I am. Yes.
Just looking for my cue.
Yes. Yes.
How's everything else? Pretty straightforward.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Clemson. We are located on the historical land of the Eastern Cherokee and Southern Iroquois. It's good to be here and be with you. My name is Karl, and I am the worship associate today. Whoever you are, wherever you are on your life journey, you are welcome here. Whomever you love, wherever you were born, whatever language you speak, you are welcome here. Whatever your skin color, whatever your class background, whatever your range of abilities, you are welcome here. We are so glad that you chose our fellowship as your place of worship this morning. Whatever your beliefs, whatever your politics, whatever your theology. We come together for worship in order to slow down and listen for the callings of our heart, our spirits. We come together for worship so that we can be reminded of our highest aspirations and continue to transform ourselves into our best selves. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, welcome. After the service, we gather for coffee and social connection in the social room. Please join us. If you're interested in getting our weekly newsletter so you can get connected to our community, our weekly sharing of joys and concerns, and our collective efforts to support local justice work, please reach out to the office by email or on our website. On the back of your Sunday morning bulletin are the announcements, and I'm going to list a few additional ones now. Register now. There will be a series of 4 discussion sessions about the proposed Article 2 revisions that are open to all UUFC members and friends. There will be an outline series on Thursday evenings and in-person sessions on Saturday mornings. To register or learn more, please check out Thursday's Weekly Connection article or email the minister at uufc.org. Join the safety team for their meeting that will be held in the social room and on Zoom on Tuesday, March 26th at 3 p.m. And on Saturday, March 30th, is a chance to get outdoors and join the grounds team workday, which will occur from 1 to 4 p.m. Contact Meg Williamson if you have any questions.
Good morning. It is so good to be here with you. I'm the Reverend Holly Brown, and my pronouns are they, them, and as of last week, I'm the newly installed subtle minister, formally, yes. And I have our opening words to share with you this morning. Ministry is all that we do together. Ministry is that quality of being in community that affirms human dignity, beacons forth hidden possibilities, invites us into deeper, more constant, reverent relationships, and carries forward our heritage of hope and liberation. Ministry is what we do together as we celebrate triumphs of our human spirit, miracles of birth and life, wonders of devotion and sacrifice. Ministry is what we do together with one another. In terror and torment, in grief, in misery and pain, enabling us in the presence of death to say yes to life. We who minister speak and live the best we know with full knowledge that it is never quite enough. And yet, we are reassured by the lostness found, the fragments reunited, the wounds healed, and the joys shared. Ministry is what we all do together. May we come into worship this morning together. And our opening hymn this morning is number 311, Let It Be a Dance. If you'll rise in body, spirit, wherever you are, whichever is comfortable, and join in singing.
Cody, will you light the chalice for us? Thank you. Now let us share in the reading of this fellowship's affirmation that is shared in the order of service. We gather together in a spirit of love, with justice as our guide. This is our chosen covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth with freedom, and to care for one another.
Many of y'all may remember a few years back when most of us were electrified by an inaugural performance of the poet Amanda Gorman and her lovely poem that she shared on that occasion. And this morning I'd like to share another piece of her work with you, which is specifically designated as a children's anthem. It's called Change Sings by Amanda Gorman and illustrated by Lauren Long. I can hear change humming in its loudest, proudest song. I don't fear change, and so I sing along. I scream with the skies of red and blue streamers. I dream with the cries of tried and true dreamers. I'm a chant that rises and rings. There is hope where my change sings. Though some don't understand it, those windmills of mystery, I sing with all the planet and its hills of histories. I hum with 100 hearts, each of us lifting a hand. I use my strengths and my smarts, take a knee to make a stand. I'm bright as the light each day brings. There is love where my change sings. I show others tolerance, though it might take some courage. I don't make a taller fence, but fight to build a better bridge. I talk not only of distances from where and how we came. I also walk our differences to show we are the same. I'm a movement that roars and springs. There's a wave where my change sings. Change sings where? There, inside me, because I am the change I want to see. As I grow, it grows like seeds. I am just what the world needs. I'm the voice where freedom rings. You're the love your bright heart brings. We are the wave starting to spring, for we are the change we sing. We're what the world is becoming, and we know it won't be long. We all hear change strumming. Won't you sing along?
This is the time we set aside for the offering in order to give toward the financial vitality of this community. Also, 25% of the weekly collection goes to an organization in the local community that we partner with. For the month of March, we are partnering with Clemson Community Care. For those of you at home, you can go to the UUFC website and use it to donate at the button. There you will see options for paying with your pledge and donating towards the organizations we partner with. Thank you for your generosity.
Thank you. This is our time for sharing our joys and concerns. It's a shared giving of ourselves with one another. whether they are read aloud or whether they remain quiet and tender upon our heart. This time allows us to hold one another in love and care, reminding us that we are not alone. As I read our joys and concerns, I've asked Karl to place a stone in the shared vessel which represents this community. Right. I'm going to try to divide things out a little bit. Okay. Because we have a lot. All right. So, I'm going to start with our stack of joys, and then I have one from me as well. So, have a joy from Martha Alexander that I'm grateful for the professional photographer Alan Goldsmith, who shared his photographs of Reverend Holly's installation with me to put on our bulletin board. And have both a joy and concern from Alan Goldsmith. Sorry to see the end of the circle dinner season this year, especially after such a wonderful evening at being in Nancy Johnson's house. And I second that, the wonderful dinner at being in Nancy's house. Have a joy from Kathy Crane. Our UUFC Habitat for Humanity team worked with the new site supervisor. We also worked with a future homeowner and her young son. We'll be back next month. And I saw some great photos that were shared on our Facebook group, I think. Yeah. Somebody shared photos from yesterday that I saw. And have a joy from Susan Pierce. Many thanks to Leslie Visage and Meg Williamson for a fabulous flower and bird walk yesterday. And have a joy from Chen Fu Chen that nature provides having good conversations with UUFC friends as well. Then have a joy from me, which I wish to share my immense gratitude for everyone that helped make the installation last Sunday possible. Those that participated in the service as speakers, as tech support, as music, as ushers, photographers, the children and youth, and my wonderful new fidget toys that are the gifts from the youth. Somebody knows me really well. And this beautiful stole that was gifted to me last week. The food preparation, the service, the cleanup, the setup, all of it made it possible. So I'm so grateful for all of you that took part in that, attendees and those that helped behind the scenes too.
It was so intense, the room was breathing.
Yes. Steve shared that it was very intense. It was as if the room was breathing. Yes. And I have both a joy and a concern that Ellen Few is on the mend from her surgery earlier this week. And then she asks for good thoughts and prayers since she has an MRI of the brain this Friday. She sends thanks for all the well wishes. And have a concern from Carol Ward that she got a flat tire in Commerce, Georgia after belated birthday party. And we have a concern shared from Barbara Stroop that her brother is in the hospital. We hold these and all of the concerns that remain heavy on our hearts, holding them as community. As we offer one more stone to represent all of those things left unsaid. We move into a moment of musical reflection and meditation. So I'm really glad that Cory just jumped in and went with it, because what's supposed to come next is singing the children on their way, but it felt important to have that moment after sharing our concerns this morning. So if Cory would offer again, singing the children on their way. I offer this prayer of co-creation this morning. Creative Spirit, source of life and love, we give thanks for the beauty of this day and for the company of those assembled here. Thank you for the breezes of change, clearing our heads and bringing fresh ideas. May they cleanse our minds of oppressions and isms that divide us. Thank you for the flame of hope, the heat of righteous anger, the warmth of compassion, the fire of commitment. May they bubble the cauldrons of transformation. Thank you for the oceans of love, rivers of connection, tears of relief, pools of serenity. May the healing waters flow over us and through us and among us, wearing down the sharp rocks of despair, of bringing joy in the morning. Thank you for the good earth beneath us and within us. May we take this clay and co-create a new realm of justice and beauty. Thank you for all of these and more. We accept our gifts and commit to building, sculpting, painting, singing, dancing them into abundant life. So be it, blessed be, and amen. And I'm going to just invite us for just a moment of silence, since we already had our lovely musical meditation before we transition into our reading.
Dance of Shared Ministry by Renee Rukashika. You begin with your body leaning slightly forward. It's an intentional way to move in the world, really, with your body's center of gravity taking the lead, and the rest of your body poised to follow. Your steps are deliberate and measured. You stay in tune with your partner so that when it's time to move in a different direction, you will be able to move together. The dance of shared ministry invites both of you to play with the edges of your comfort zones. The leader steps forward, paying attention and responding to both potential obstacles and opportunities. The follower's corresponding steps are dependent on trust in the leader. The leader attends to the body language of the follower so that the follower feels guided and not pushed. The follower learns to live into the discomfort of not seeing the path as clearly as the leader. This dance requires both partners to communicate clearly. But in spite of even the best communication, the dancers will have missteps, entanglements, unintended pauses. Some of the steps may be familiar, even habitual, but other steps might feel awkward at first. But when you're able to step into the flow of give and take, of awareness and adjustment, the dance of ministry becomes fluid and organic. The embodied experience that Renee describes is taken from her experience of learning how to tango. Being in covenant together is a lot like a dance. There is give and take. Occasionally you step on someone else's feet, or they step on yours. Some dance floor etiquette that might guide us in shared ministry. Reverend Holly, would you like to dance with me?
Yes. We decided that we'd share this because it really felt like it represented the dance floor, so to speak. Always try to enter the floor from an area that will not interrupt the flow of other dancers already on the floor. The ministry of a congregation is organic, holistic. As you make space for new programs and ministries, make sure they fit the mission and vision of the congregation.
Always move counterclockwise around the dance floor. The most effective congregations have all of their leaders leading toward the same vision. You need to make sure you don't have a leader or ministry that is not in alignment with your goals.
No parking on the dance floor. If there is a ministry that you're not excited about, but there is energy and flow among others, please move off the dance floor and learn to enjoy watching others flourish, even when it's not your passion.
Stay in your lane. Set up clear expectations and understandings about the roles of minister, board, staff, and other leaders. Even with shared ministry, you need clarity about who is ultimately responsible for the different areas of your congregation.
Do not lift your elbows on the dance floor. Having your elbow up is seen as an aggressive way to claim your space. You want to have good boundaries between ministries outlined with our covenants, bylaws, and key policies. Poor boundaries can function as institutional landmines.
Do not stop dancing if you make a mistake. In the movie Scent of a Woman, Al Pacino reassures his dance partner before they step out on the dance floor. There are no mistakes in tango, not like life. If you get all tangled up, you just tango on. The same is true of our covenants. If you get all tangled up, you just forgive yourselves and one another and begin again in love. Let us rise in body, mind, or spirit and sing together, Lean on Me, hymn number 1021.
All right. Well, for anyone that was here for the installation last week, my beloved friend and colleague, Ian, jumped into that in the middle of his homily, and I decided that I needed to use it again this Sunday as we talk about shared ministry, because it is about that give and take, us caring for one another. Because shared ministry is a way for us to co-create together. I'm not the only one that carries the ministries of UUFC. At least I shouldn't be. Because it is a collective thing for us to share together. I'm not the only one that attends to the ministries of caring for one another. We have some really great folks that reach out to each other when you know that someone is sick or dealing with grief or joy, so that we can care for one another in those moments of need. Together, collectively, we recreate and co-create the ministries of this congregation. And we can't do it in a silo. The board isn't over here doing their own thing, and the finance council over here doing their own thing, and me over here, and the worship associates over there. Because if we don't talk to each other, if we're not working towards that shared vision and mission of the congregation, we're doing ourselves a disservice. I like the opening hymn and the reading where it talks about dancing. Because if you imagine us all moving around the room in different directions, dancing to our own tune, how messy would that get? But if we are working together and moving in the same direction, there is such beauty in that. And to be clear, the reading about dancing talks about leading and following, but that means different people take the lead at different times as necessary. It doesn't mean the same person stepping up to take the lead for every single thing in the congregation. There are some that serve in many different capacities, wear all of the different hats, and sometimes they need to take a step back to let other people move into those spaces of leadership. Every Sunday that I'm in the pulpit, I pull from something called Worship Web or the Soul Matters Sharing Circle as inspiration with readings or different things that kind of help me come up with some ideas that are different from week to week. But you might notice that some weeks we have worship associates that offer reflections, and some weeks we don't. And that, in large part, is up to the worship associate, what they are comfortable with, and how far out in advance I get the idea to them, and how much they have time to prepare around their busy schedules. Sometimes it is selecting a reading, or this week, selecting a reading that we could playfully read together. But there are also ways in which our worship associates show up with helping lead services, like Holly Olbrich this past Sunday, and others like Karl and Bill Brule and Wei Chen, who have helped lead services in the last few months. And we work together with getting our slides, with picking our hymns, with picking the stories. I sit down with Karen on a regular basis for us to think about stories that will flow with the rest of the service. And you don't have to raise your hand or nod your head for this one. But I wonder how many of you have had a story that Karen shared or that I have shared during the Time for All Ages that's what you connected with, more than what I say during my sermon. I know I had so many people after water communion and the Drop with the Dream came up and talked to me about that, but I'm not sure if they resonated with the actual sermon. And that is okay, because I think there needs to be as many points of interest in a service as possible, ways that you can enter into the space. We have music every Sunday. Have any of you ever attended a worship service where there was no music? That would be really weird, right? So in my internship, I had a very strange occurrence happen. Our music director, who played our piano and led our choir, woke up really sick and couldn't be there. So we had two congregations, one in Charlotte and one in Salisbury. And in the Charlotte congregation, we had somebody that had a full-size harp that pulled it in to play music, and we adjusted what songs we were playing to something she could use the harp to perform. But in Salisbury, we didn't have anybody to play any kind of musical instrument on such short notice. And we had somebody that kind of led some songs a cappella a couple of times during the service, but there was a lot of space that was just empty. So music is such a vital part of congregational life. It allows us to be in collective space of worship together. But we do not want me to lead anything a cappella or anything for that matter, because you might not be able to hear it, because if I'm on a mic, I'm going to be singing so low. But all jokes aside, there is something beautiful about the give and take of all of the different elements that come together to make a service possible. And I want to ask if anybody noticed anything different about the order of service today. There's no title, but you know where the title is? It's down here next to the sermon, instead of taking space up at the top and helping fill in this part of the order of service, because some weeks it looks a little bit blank. So we're trying a few things out. Not everything is going to happen all at once, but, we want to make sure that it's getting the information out there. We also added the information about who our benevolence is next to the offering. So some small changes, maybe not noticeable, but I came up with that idea not because I came up with that idea, but I was inspired by somebody saying sometimes our order of service looks a little too cluttered. So instead of having all of the names and all of the things down the side, we've adapted that a little bit. And who has noticed the chairs in the room? Yeah? So this came from a concern that we didn't have enough places that were accessible seating in the sanctuary, and a concern that was brought up a few weeks ago. And then we were thinking about how we might configure things for the installation. Now, does that mean that everybody likes the change? Not necessarily. The center section apparently is too rigid and looks a little too much like other churches. And I've heard that from a few people. And this isn't permanent the way that it is. If there's ideas of how we can be both accessible and have it flow or meet the needs of this congregation, then that's important to consider. Although, if you have some ideas, having them out and also like anybody that's able or willing to help with those changes, it would be great, because Kathy helped me a lot with rearranging the chairs the way they are. And my little bit of OCD had an impact on this middle row or this middle section that has 7 chairs each, and the middle chair lines up perfectly with the pulpit. And I used a yardstick in between each of them because that's the way my brain works some days. But I don't know if anybody else is seeing the wonder of the children walking by out the window, and they're going to be doing a Holly celebration, but that's HOLI with color powders and things, so it might be a little bit messy, but not this Holly. So, but that is another piece of our ministries of this congregation, to have that celebration and representation of other faith traditions that our children and youth get to explore. Not everything is going to be just the right thing for everybody here. What I share isn't going to be the thing that somebody needs to hear some weeks. And that's why it's awesome that we have lay leaders that lead services sometimes, so that y'all don't have to get tired of just my voice. Hopefully that hasn't happened too much yet. But, y'all, I lost my place. I go off script too much sometimes, and I lose my place in my notes. But just like the hymns that we had today about dancing and about leaning on one another, we have to follow along together, working together to achieve the mission and vision of the congregation. Is anybody here familiar with what our mission or vision statements say? I see a lot of faces. And so I decided that I would read them out to you so that you can hear them and be familiar with them. The mission statement says, "We are an inclusive religious community sharing open minds, spiritual growth, and compassionate action." Our vision says, UUFC will be a vibrantly diverse, welcoming, and caring religious community that fosters spiritual and intellectual growth for all ages, a beacon in the larger community for social justice, care for the earth, and compassionate service. A growing congregation with resources to support high-quality personnel and facilities, and broad participation in shared ministries and programs. And that's in the mission and vision of this congregation. The vision speaks of participation in that shared ministry, recognizing that it is something that we do together. How beautiful is it that your vision statement speaks of how to be in that relationship in ministry? And I'm here to tell you that y'all do a pretty good job of this shared ministry with people in various different leadership positions, taking on different roles so that it doesn't fall all on one or two people or all on the minister. And from my experience, that's better than some congregations. And I would also venture to say that there are some that do it better. But, once you get to a bigger congregation, you have more people to spread out those things with. There there's a statistic that I don't think is very accurate, that there are 20% of the people in a congregation doing 80% of the work. Well, I have to say then, I hope that means that there's, let me make sure I get this the right direction. The opposite of that, I'm hoping, is everybody doing those little things, whether it is just bringing food for hospitality, or donating something for the auction, or signing up for the talent show, or any of the things that help keep this congregation moving forward. Those ideas that bubble up, whether it's men's group or craft group, that just kind of spontaneously form because there's interest in those things. And sometimes we have spontaneous moments that remind us of the joy that can come in a service for anybody. When we're all working together in this beautiful ministry of this congregation, we can achieve so much with care for one another, with care for the community, active in social action, whether it is on a large scale or a small scale, whether it is building things with Habitat for Humanity, or even donating money. Y'all, I have to say, I was blown away. The official count isn't in, but Becky, our office admin, did a rough count, and it was an amazing amount of money that was collected during the installation last week. I think she estimated around $700, which will be split between the Living Tradition Fund and PFLAG in Anderson to support LGBTQIA work and mission in this community near us. And I realized I forgot to say that in the joys, but that is amazing, y'all. There are so many ways that this congregation came together for an installation service representing all of us coming together, because I couldn't have done it all alone. Did y'all see how many people were helping with the food and the drinks and the setup and the cleanup and measuring to make sure the tables were going to fit in the different areas? There was a lot of work that happened behind the scenes, and I'm sure a few dance moves to make sure you weren't bumping into each other in that kitchen or moving chairs and things around. You can call one another into leadership positions to watch who maybe has the interest or skills in a different area. And you don't have to say, oh, I want you to do this thing all by yourself. But hey, I wonder if this might be something that's up your alley. Is this something that you might like to explore or sit with me and see how it goes, how it works? And starting in April, there'll be a short spotlight for various different groups in the congregation so you can hear about the passions and the things that are going on in this congregation. Now, as leadership shifts and changes, as denomination shifts and changes, it can be hard. Now, again, not everybody loves the way the chairs are. And that's okay. We don't all have to be in exactly the same place in our journey. But there is a danger that if we aren't willing to change at least a little bit, we could stifle the passions that are part of this congregation, that are part of our denomination. And I've seen it happen. Growing up as a minister's kid, and my dad was a United Methodist minister, and some of those congregations wanted to grow so long as they didn't have to do anything differently. They wanted to grow so long as they didn't have to hand over any leadership. Do y'all think that went very well? A number of the very small congregations my father served ended up closing within a few years. Most of them were on 2 or 4 point charges, which meant they alternated who was having church on a different Sunday and had very low attendance and couldn't afford to pay a minister full-time from just one congregation. But it wasn't just the size or the struggles financially, but there was that lack of willingness to try something different or to actually include new people. And there's a saying that I've said before, and will probably say again, but it's jokingly called the 7 last words of the church. We've never done it that way before. And it's important to remember that change can be transformative when we allow for the space for more people to join in that shared ministry that we hold together. As this congregation, as we move through these dances together, to be joyful, to be caring, to be creative, to hold one another in times of need, we co-create the future of this congregation together as we move forward on our spiritual journeys. May it be so. May we make it so. And blessed be. And now for our closing hymn, which is number 134, Our World is One World. We're just going to do verses 1 and 2. And if you'll rise in body or in spirit, whichever is comfortable for you, wherever you are, to join in singing. Our closing words today come from Susan Manker's cell. Much of ministry is a benediction. As speaking well of each other and the world, the speaking well of what we value, honesty, love, forgiveness, trust, as speaking well of our efforts, as speaking well of our dreams. This is how we celebrate life. They're speaking well of it, living the benediction, and becoming, as a word, well spoken. May you go in peace and return in love until we're together again.